Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Plenty going on here. Let me start with this. The primary elections the other day were interesting to say the least. We can still see the voter fraud. That apparently, again, at least one particular moment of it, at face value, was in Florida with House District 6, specifically between Randy Fine, who of course is an Israeli shill, and Dan Blazerian, who was running against him. Basically, when there was 27% of the vote in, Dan Blazerian was down to Randy Fine by approximately 500 votes. And then when 42% of the voting was in, they had taken away some of Dan Blazerian's votes. Again, when it was 27%, he was at 8,191. And when it was at 42.2%, he was at 6,383. Again, you don't lose votes. And there's, some people commenting online and openly saying, well, look, this was a NBC error, that this happens from time to time. In particular, as the percentages go up, it doesn't mean that votes are being deleted. It just means this, that, and the other. Well, look, if you're going to run a vote total and a vote counter next to the person's name, then the number should never go down. That's basically it. I mean, that's the rub here. Now, having said that, having Dan Blazerian win would kind of be a bit of a long shot, although, if I had to venture a guess, I'd say he had the youth vote. And it certainly seemed to be the case in Florida when it came to Byron Donalds against James Fishback, and there was another candidate as well who was running on the Republican ticket. While Byron Donalds won, he lost the youth vote. I believe the demographic between the ages of 18 and 35 overwhelmingly went for Fishback, specifically college campuses and towns that had college campuses. So, I mean, it's pretty crystal clear here that your standard so-called Republican, who either gets an endorsement or doesn't, that these individuals, again, are losing the youth vote. They're just not getting it because more and more youth are waking up to what's really going on. And to be frank, again, we need more Dan Blazerian kinds of individuals within Congress. Again, I'm not saying that I agree with his past and the decisions he made in his past. I certainly don't. But the man has found Jesus one way or another. And he's made better decisions. And again, he ran for a position when he didn't have to run in the first place. That right there, again, should tell people that, frankly, that's the exact kind of person that we want in Congress. That's the exact kind of person that we want in so-called government. This is what we need. We need individuals who are aware of the amount of money that's been stolen, the amount of influence that exists in our country, how it comes from the Jewish lobby, among others, NGOs, you name it, and that this has to stop. So again, it's unfortunate, and sadly, again, a lot of people just go right back to sleep, but when you see an irregularity like that, it's not an accident. Again, the will is there to get the right people in office, in all of the right positions, and to disrupt the establishment even more. There is no doubt about that. We just need the result now. Now people are just waiting for the actual result and get these again. Clear Zionists like Randy Fine, they don't get more Zionistic than him, frankly. I mean, I'm sure they do, but you get the point, is that getting rid of him and getting people like that out of office is a very good thing. So it's unfortunate Dan Blazerian lost. Same thing with Fishback. It's too bad that he lost too. Byron Donalds is wrapped up in a lot of crime. He really is. Corey Mills lost his race in Florida. That too, I find rather interesting because he's just as dirty as Byron Donalds. Again, when people get confused about this left-right paradigm stuff, it's really disappointing because they'll hear someone like me or someone like you talk about criticizing these so-called Republicans, and it's like, yeah, because we're criticizing individuals that are fraudulent. Byron Donalds is as Floridian as a pair of chopsticks. I mean, the guy comes from Brooklyn, New York. He just moved down there to become a representative down there to run for Congress because, again, that was his long-term goal. His handlers around him were like, hey, look, DeSantis is going to leave. We need somebody that the American public recognizes. Why don't you come on down and, you can represent Florida and then you can become governor. And look what's happening. I would say this, at least more people are running for office. At least more people, again, seem to be running in these primaries. Again, there was a time when a primary would occur and there was only one individual on the ballot. Now it's gotten to a point where there's sometimes 2, 3, even 4 people on a ballot for a primary, which is great. I mean, I'm 100% fine with that. Unfortunately, it takes away a lot of votes from the individual who I would say is the most awake. Of all of those individuals, again, that ran in Florida, in the Dan Blazerian Randy Fine race specifically, Dan Blazerian is the most awake. I mean, he's very awake as to what's going on. And unfortunately, some votes were taken away from him because another guy, Aaron Baker, along with 2 other guys. I mean, there were 5 guys in that primary race altogether. So that's a lot of votes taken away from a Dan Blazerian. If, again, those individuals weren't in the race, who knows what would have happened? They probably still would have stolen it, but either way, I mean, me personally, I'm optimistic about it. I think that more better people are running, more awake people are running, and the younger generation is waking up to this, which is a very good thing. Yeah, there's always going to be the brainwashed, regardless of the generation, but people are waking up. And again, James Fishback ran a nice race. He openly promised individuals things that, again, politicians typically wouldn't promise. I won't run again if I don't accomplish the things that I say I'm going to accomplish in my first term as governor. I mean, that's ballsy, and I like that. That's very cool. So more people need to do that. More people need to step up, I think, and start running in these races. That would be an absolutely fantastic thing. So with that said, let me move over to here. This is a post from Brian Cates over on X, and again, it kind of has to do with security in our elections and moving forward, and how, again, things cannot be the same ever again. I mean, we have to fix this. This has to get fixed. He said the following here, quote, "This morning's declassification, either the 6th or the 7th in just the past 2 weeks, I've lost count, sue me, is the 2016-2020 election related, and it makes it crystal clear that the direction Trump is headed, when it comes to the fact that over 35 states are not conducting elections for federal office in a legal or transparent manner." Now, again, just a side note here, the declassification that he's talking about in large part has to do with the fact that the voter rolls are completely cooked, and that many of these states, certainly the blue ones, are not redoing their voter rolls. I mean, they're not kicking illegal aliens off. They still have the mail-in ballots, they still have the drop boxes, they still have all of that. But again, this can't be the case going forward. So it goes on here. It says, before Trump moves to secure the election this November, he will finish via declassifications such as this one today, making the case to the American public that, number one, there is no real election security in this country. The very same federal shadow government that works with corrupt states to rig election outcomes here in the United States has been covering up how bad the election security system actually is, and stepped up its furious gaslighting of the public about safest and securest election ever after 2020 to gloss over the theft of the election from Donald Trump. Number two, the same shadow government that hid the breaches of the nation's election security by foreign states and foreign entities covered this up to maintain the fiction of safe and secure election systems. Number three, although the actions of the federal shadow government are being exposed via this ongoing declassification wave, this can happen now, and the shadow government in D.C. has been removed from power and has had a sufficient level of control seized back from it by Trump and team of patriots. The compromised and unsecure election systems that shadow government was hiding are still there, in our states and many of our large urban counties. Number four, for a year now, Trump White House has been attempting to verify that states are running their elections in compliance with federal election laws, which include removing dead, moved, non-existent, illegal voters from the state's voter rolls. Currently, over 35 states are furiously fighting to hide these voter rolls from the DOJ's Civil Rights Division in Harmeet Dillon. Number five, because election systems in so many states and counties have been deliberately crafted to be non-transparent in how the elections are being conducted. And this includes elections for federal offices, not just state, city, county offices. And most of the attention has been focused on how easily foreign actors have penetrated these non-transparent election systems. The flip side of this is this. If it has been that easy for China and others to get in here and steal data, and supposedly no one could see it or know about it, what kind of corruption does that open the door to when it comes to the people actually running the elections in our states? If the election system security is so riddled with holes that China can schlep in here and steal 220 million voter records, is the only threat to safe and secure elections coming from overseas? Is it not evidence that the way these election systems are currently configured, we can't tell if the locals running the elections are running them honestly or not? I mean, they pinky swear to us that they're not cheating to win their re-elections or to elect their friends and shut out their enemies. Can we continue to trust them? Number 6, can America move forward and simply trust these compromised, non-transparent, non-secure election systems for another election? Trump will make the case that we cannot do that. The shadow government deliberately hid a national security crisis from both the president and the country. Federal elections conducted by the states determine who enters federal office: the presidency, the federal agencies, the Congress, and the courts. Those elections must be secure. The election systems that are utilized to determine the outcome of races for federal office must be above reproach. An election system apparatus in our states formulated on a just trust me bro basis that is not transparent and has been repeatedly demonstrated to be non-secure is a national security issue. Number 7, after becoming aware of the massive breaches of national security by foreign states and entities via non-secure, non-transparent election systems, the Trump DOJ began taking steps last year to address this by ensuring that the states are following the bare-bones election security laws. These include the Federal Help Americans Vote Act, HAVA. Ever since the Trump White House moved to ensure the transparency and security of the elections for federal offices being conducted by the states, over 35 states have been furiously and stridently fighting to keep, maintain, shield their current election systems from any federal oversight whatsoever. The brutal truth is, while the federal shadow government was in control, it was working in conjunction with many state authorities in ensuring election outcomes. They've been doing this for decades. Now the shadow government at the federal level has lost control, and the state authorities that spent decades getting to run their elections for federal office in whatever slick-ass, Persian, bizarre manner they wished are not happy that the Trump administration wants to check the books and how they are running federal elections. Not happy at all. Little side note before I finish the post, which is almost done. That's exactly what I brought up on a previous show where I was saying, look, all of the local panic is real. It's real panic because the panic that's been happening at the federal level has basically been removed, and now it's down to the local and state level. And all these state governors and all these state and local races, they're all panicking, which means they got to get their guys into these positions right quick. Go back to Dan Blazarian, for example. He was running in a very Jewish district. Somebody like Dan Blazarian, again, by the numbers, probably wasn't going to win. However, he made a lot of inroads. But is there election fraud in that district? Of course there is. Those individuals, again, are typically fine with somebody like Randy Fine. But at the same time, again, when you're counting mail-in ballots and you've got drop boxes and anything of that nature, and I don't know if they have that in Florida or they don't, but either way, who's counting the votes? Are they using machines? I mean, again, how many times is a ballot being cast through a machine? There's really no way to know. Not until the military gets involved. This is one of those things that we've been clamoring for a long time. I want to show up to a polling booth, on election day, and I want fatigues. I want people who are in the military counting the votes. That's what I want. I don't want these wormy citizens. I really don't. Not for at least one election. I want these individuals to get it right, and I want paper ballots, and I want them hand counted, and I'm not the only one who feels that way. He goes on here, Brian does, and says the following: over 35 of the states are fighting and will continue to fight any functional federal oversight of how they conduct elections for federal offices. Those states are going to lose this fight. One way or another, whether the SAVE Act or Trump declaring a national emergency, the old non-transparent system being run by local corrupt cats is going to end and be replaced with a new election system that legal and transparent and easily checkable and verifiable. No more just trust us bro elections. Here comes the great American election reset. It will happen over the next 60 days. Ain't life grand, unquote. Well, I hope it does. Again, there's a great deal happening here that has not happened in the past. The exposure of the medical system, the declassification of all of this corruption, again, the broken elections, all of it. It's only overwhelming for the people who aren't awake. Even if, again, they're paying attention, it's overwhelming, but it's overwhelming for the bad guys because they don't know what to grab onto. They're doing whatever they can to deflect from one issue to the next. I mean, they're really having a hard time with this, and so be it. And I mean, who cares? They should be having a hard time with this because they should all hang by the neck until dead. But at the same time, this hasn't happened before with any previous administration, this level of corruption at the government level that's been exposed here. And again, when people wake up, as it's been said a million times by endless people, myself included, they don't go back to sleep. And I think one of the other things too, which again is happening here in the next couple of weeks, is going to be interesting. And who knows, this could be part of the declass also. And the speeches that are given and the information that is shared could be, again, a huge part of this declassification for the American public. And it's the midterm convention that's taking place, and it's taking place in Dallas, Texas. This was from Observing Consciousness on X, and they said the following regarding this particular conference. The midterm convergence in the GOP Dallas rally, it's a beautiful strategy. Check this out. Here's what I'm observing with this shift. Trump isn't just breaking political tradition for spectacle. He is shocking the system to realign it around a North Star. In systems dynamics, when a complex system becomes fragmented, sluggish, and trapped in its own routines, sometimes you don't fix every piece individually. You introduce a disruption large enough to break the existing rhythm, capture attention, and pull the scattered parts toward a common center. That is what Dallas looks like to me. First comes the break with tradition, which creates surprise and captures the political oxygen. Attention then creates convergence. Candidates, donors, activists, media, messaging, and voter energy suddenly concentrating around the same moment. The flow convergence creates synchronization. Synchronization creates unity. Unity creates amplification, and amplification becomes momentum. When that energy is pushed back outward through hundreds of campaigns and millions of people. Zoom out, and the strategy comes to life. Disruption draws attention, which brings convergence, enabling synchronization, resulting in alignment, thus bringing amplification, creating unstoppable momentum. That is where it becomes a forcing function. Because while your own system is being pulled into alignment, the opposing system is being knocked out of rhythm. They now have to decide whether to ignore it, attack it, counter it, or reorganize around it. But every option means reacting to a disruption they did not create. It's kind of like Zootsfing, basically. You're making the enemy move when they don't want to, and you're making them make a move that they don't want to by controlling exactly what's going on and basically because you have your fingers on the pulse of the nation. I use the same principle, they said, when looking at complex systems. Sometimes the fastest path back to the North Star is not another incremental adjustment inside the existing cycle. Sometimes you break the cycle hard enough that the entire system has to reorganize itself around a new center of gravity. That is the deeper play, not a rally, but a deliberate shock designed to collapse fragmentation, force convergence, and send one unified signal back through the entire political map. If Dallas works, the midterms stop behaving like hundreds of separate races and start moving like one synchronized system aimed at a single North Star. Nothing can stop what is coming. And then, of course, they have basically an AI-generated image describing their post as they typically do. Now, what's interesting with this is it begs the question, what kinds of people are actually going to be speaking at this particular convention? If it's going to be the typical Israeli shills, I don't think that's going to work. If it's going to be Erica Kirk coming out to fireworks, I don't think that's going to work. These people have gone sour. They really have. But if a great deal of people from all of these different sort of separated groups, who again are all generally conservative, love America, want fair elections, we want the corruption gone, we want accountability, we want arrests, we want, again, a new fair system that works. That if all of those fractions of those individuals who, again, are seemingly on the good side, if they come out of the woodwork and give a quick speech, that would show some unity. But again, if it's people like Ted Cruz and it's Israeli flags in the air and all of that other stuff, I'm sorry. I don't think the American people are going to buy that. Because the one thing, again, that's typically not going to happen is you're not going to have Republicans vote for Democrats in any midterm election. The thing that conservatives will end up doing is basically what I'm doing, which is you just don't vote. Because look who your candidates are. Here in Ohio, they're completely worthless. Whereas, of course, in other states, you actually have some pretty good candidates, depending on who they are, of course. That right there is what gets people out to vote, voting for real Americans, not these establishment individuals that just sort of keep coming back like a bad penny. Again, I understand the importance of having something like this when you've never had it before, in particular now, certainly with all the declassification that's taken place. To have someone come out on stage and unroll this piece by piece and go through these documents like a Catherine Herridge, have her come out on stage. Yes, she's in the media and she's supposed to be nonpartisan in the whole thing, but she has documentation on the entire Russia hoax. She has documentation on voter fraud. She has a lot of this that she's reporting, certainly on X and even News Nation and a lot of these other channels. Most mainstream sort of everyday channels want nothing to do with her because she's bringing the receipts. But that's what we need, is we need people out there who are not denying what's really going on, but actually telling the truth about what's really happening here. But we don't want to see, again, we really don't want to see any of these standard people giving these standard speeches all over again. We don't want to turn this into a pre-2024 presidential election rally like the thing that took place in Madison Square Garden. We don't want to see that. We don't need rap music. We don't need fireworks. We need brass tacks. We need people to come out there and shock the American people with what's really been going on. If you want to play video montages of people lying about COVID, again, there's an 11-minute montage that someone put together on social media the other day. It's very well done, and I put it in the last war video. Play that. Play that montage for 11 straight minutes during this convention, and I hope that they do. But it's not just the COVID lie that's the problem. It's everything else. It's Barack Obama. Again, I know a lot of this is classified information. Some of it is, of course. And if prosecutions are really happening and grand juries are really being convened, certainly military tribunals, you're not going to want to, you're not going to want to let the cat out of the bag immediately. But you got to give the American people a taste. You got to give them a taste of something. But it can't be, again, it can't be a show. It can't be some giant dramatic production of some kind. The best propaganda is the truth. Always has been, always will be. And the more pomp and circumstance there is, the gayer it's going to look. It's just going to turn into another kind of like a midterm CPAC conference. It's not what people want. But they don't want a Madison Square Garden, Charlie Kirk fake funeral fireworks thing either. It could be done precisely, and it could be an absolute sniper shot right at the exact moment that gets people's attention and motivates people. It's not going to motivate me to vote for Vivek one way or another. It's not happening. But at the same time, if it's scheduled correctly and the right people show up to speak, in particular, again, people from the past who maybe we haven't seen before or haven't seen frequently, that might have a positive impact. Because right now, again, all of the people that exist on the so-called right wing of politics and right wing of our nation, which is, again, Christian and conservative, that's the vast majority, there's fractioning in that group. Even with all of the declass that's still happening, which, again, is clearly coordinated. It is not accidental that it's been happening this entire year and that we're living through it, which is a fantastic thing. Again, this is the thing we were clamoring for back during the Q drops. And again, I understand fully that it had to be slow, methodical. People had to be educated. They had to wake up. They had to do their own research. They had to, this is what they had to do. But at the exact same time, whatever happens with this particular midterm convention, it better work. I don't know, again, exactly what the goal is, other than to galvanize people around, a very similar idea and a same mission. It's difficult with somebody, again, like a Vivek Ramaswamy who belongs in jail. I don't want to see him on that stage. I don't want him coming up from, basically representing Ohio, or they just bring up every single person who's representing every single state who's going to be voted on in the future here in November and have them all give a speech and whatever else. I mean, I don't know. It would look a little weird because it's a bit like gaslighting everybody into believing that the person who's running is the greatest thing since sliced bread, when clearly that's not the case. Me, frankly, I would just prefer to see video montages. I mean, if they just played one video montage after another of the deep state players lying through their teeth, being hypocritical, contradicting themselves on a consistent basis, and then you add in the COVID lie, the Russia hoax. I mean, you can pick a subject, voter fraud, all of it. I mean, that's going to be a wake-up call for a great deal of people because, again, even the enemy and the left wing is going to be paying attention to that, and so will so-called independent voters, whoever the hell they are. They'll be watching too. So, yeah, we'll stay tuned for it. But it's September 9th and September 10th in Dallas. I find the dates to be rather interesting, the timing to be rather interesting, and we'll see what happens, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, I'll watch it. I'll see what it's all about. Again, let me give you a couple of quick examples. This is some of the stories that they could run with and the video montages that they could run with. Again, this is happening right now as I'm recording. This is all from the Gateway Pundit. So again, sorry for the reference there, but either way, FBI agents confront former Dem Congressman Eric Swalwell at airport and seize his electronics, including his cell phone. That's a big deal. Out of Michigan, it says, outrage, Jocelyn Benson's election bureau moves to kill Michigan proof of citizenship and voter ID ballot measure after random 1,000 signature sample leaves petition just 17 valid signatures short, despite 709,841 collected. There's that number 17 again. Again, of all of the signature samples, it leaves just 17 valid signatures short. Really? What are the odds of that? There was also this too, which I think was just the other day. It was either the DOJ or the Trump White House openly came out and said that thousands of lawyers are going to be placed in thousands of voting locations across the nation during the midterms. Again, I think a lot of these midterm races are going to get called in a timely fashion when they do happen. And again, if lawyers are present, lawyers, quote unquote, God knows really who they would be, but it would almost indicate that they're going to make sure that the election won't be stolen one way or another. I certainly hope that's the case. But I'll tell you what, let me stay on this train here of Declass, and I'm just going to skip right to the jab portion of the show here. And I'm going to bring up education stuff later, and I have some rather important stuff regarding that as well, along with a flock story to tell everybody once I'm done with this Declass of the medical industry. But Catherine Herridge, again, put this out on X. This has to do with Fauci's right-hand man. His name, of course, is David Morenz, and he also testified in front of Congress, I want to say maybe a year ago or so, and it didn't go very well either. But here's what she said. She said, ex-Fauci advisor pleads guilty. What's in the sealed supplement? Typically, a sealed supplement details any cooperation agreement by the defendant, in this case Morenz, against co-conspirators, or no cooperation agreement exists. Sealed, quote-unquote, means not available to the public, but the government, defendant, and judge have access. She said, note FBI Director Kash Patel, when he said, quote, this FBI investigation remains ongoing. And FBI uncovered that David Morenz, co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator 2 and others, conspired during the COVID-19 pandemic to defraud the United States after the National Institutes of Health terminated co-conspirator 1's grant. Then she wrote, context, as I reported in June, with pressure and the right incentives, Morenz might be flipped and become a cooperating witness. Morenz had a front row seat as a senior advisor to Fauci at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Thank you for subscribing and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Again, he was deleting emails. That's why he pled guilty. He got caught deleting emails as a government official, which you're not supposed to do. And it just so happened that some of those were emails that Anthony Fauci, again, was writing and or receiving. And he wasn't supposed to delete them either. But either way, in at least one email, Anthony Fauci emails Morenz and says, oh, by the way, delete this. You can't do that. You have to keep everything all of the time. So again, I think there's, I agree with her. I think that there's flipping going on. I mean, Morenz has absolutely nothing to lose at this point and everything to gain. Why would he not throw Anthony Fauci under the bus? Observing Consciousness also said this. They said the COVID cover-up map is widening fast. Morenz is the entry point and opens the network mapping. His guilty plea puts a real node on the board. Private Gmail, hidden federal communications, multiple co-conspirators, NIH, EcoHealth, and the Wuhan research fight all tied into the same concealment scheme. Side note, our own government was involved in this too, ladies and gentlemen, but that's, another story for another time, but it's an important piece. Then they went on and said, now add Fauci's COVID-era phone. That gives investigators another major communications node they can cross against Morenz, the missing emails, grant decisions, FOIA pressure, call logs, contacts, and timelines. That is how the map unfolds. One proven node leads to the next, then the next, until the scattered pieces stop looking scattered at all. Unquote. Now, below that particular post, someone replied, and this is Humanspective, at Humanspective on X. They said the following here, again, get a load of this. Nothing to see here, just Fauci discussing how to get Big Pharma involved in a new warp speed vaccine tech project called Hyperdrive to coincide with the timing of an election. It's not about whether the people even need the vaccine or not. It's about the trick, quote unquote, of timing the problem to happen 18 months before the solution, quote unquote. It says to win an election, and he said this again in his diary, July 17th, 2020, Sunday, Fauci's diary, quote, he wants to propose putting billions of dollars into a program that would mimic Operation Warp Speed, Hyperdrive, quote unquote, closely administered vaccines to prevent infection and transmission, as well as next-generation platform. The trick about all of this is a product to go into the arm of Americans within 18 months to coincide with approaching the end of the administration and the election for the presidency. I told Ron that I would back him on the transformative nature. Went on and said, I suggested a group compromised of him, me, Peter Marks, and Rob Califf from the FDA, as well as some knowledgeable people from biotech and pharma, unquote. And then they simply said, what could possibly go wrong? Again, this has nothing to do with medicine. It just has to do with compliance, getting compliance, making people sick, creating stories and fairy tales around why people are sick, and then using it again around elections to basically, attempt to garner support for their agenda. I mean, they really think that everybody is this stupid, and we're just not. But even the jabbed today are waking up. It's the people who are jabbed who are not waking up. They're the problem. And yeah, they're a problem for us, but they're a problem for themselves first. And that's not going to get any better on their end. But again, there are plenty of individuals who are jabbed who are waking up to what's going on here. And it doesn't look good. And yeah, they look foolish because they fell for it. But now all of a sudden they're not falling for it anymore and they can see through the lines. And that's fine. I'm all for that. We'll take as many awake people on our side as we possibly can. In fact, let me mention this just very quickly, and I hope it's okay that I mention this for this particular individual, but they've been a guest on the show previously, years ago, and we text back and forth from time to time, and they're also over there on X. Former educator, and they sent me a text message having to do with one of their family members, specifically, again, their sister-in-law. Apparently, their brother is a pharmacist, either is or was a pharmacist, and his wife was most assuredly injected and is in her 50s and has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And apparently the sister-in-law pulled her husband's sister aside and basically said everything that you were saying in 2020 was right. You were 100% right about the shots, about all of it. So again, it's a terrible circumstance. It's a terrible result to say the least. But even the injured are waking up. Even individuals who are given basically a terminal diagnosis like that, even they are waking up, and even they are probably apologizing and, giving recognition where recognition is due. Because again, I don't know of many 50-year-olds who end up with Alzheimer's. It typically doesn't happen. But see, this too right here is exactly where the propaganda is going. I mean, it's so obvious at this point that you would think that it would shake somebody, again, right out of their boots. But many people, again, will openly believe this. They'll believe this new packaged version of propaganda, of evil propaganda specifically. This was sudden and unexpected over on X. They said new experimental mRNA treatment claims it can stop melanoma returning. Same technology as the COVID vaccines, personalized to each patient's tumor. Trial of 1,100 plus people. Would you take it? A new experimental mRNA treatment has been shown to prevent melanoma from returning in a major clinical trial involving more than 1,100 patients. The personalized therapy uses technology made prominent by COVID-19 vaccines and is tailored to each patient's tumor. Researchers say that the result could mark a major breakthrough in treating one of Australia's deadliest cancers. No. The answer's no. mRNA and the COVID shots cause melanoma. Now they want you to take another mRNA shot because so many people are ending up with melanoma. What they're not telling you, of course, is that the individuals who took the shots are getting melanoma. And melanoma is one of 1,000 plus symptoms as a result of taking the COVID shots. That's it. Now they want you to double down on it. See, with each reoccurring symptom, the medical industry is going to come out with a new shot that they're always going to claim is going to subside that symptom. That it'll put that symptom at bay, or it'll put that condition at bay, and you won't have to worry about it ever again, whether it's mRNA or not. The needle industry, the syringe application of poison into bodies is ramping up now. This is Operation Warp Speed. This is what Operation Warp Speed is. It's about exposure. It's about forcing the hand of the syringe, whatever you want to call that conglomerate. We'll call them the syringe mafia. It's forced the whole syringe mafia to play their hand faster than they ever wanted to play it. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this was going to be rolled out in piecemeal, one little spoonful at a time, across the course of decades. And it was going to wipe out everybody. But because it was sped up, everybody can see the negative impact that it's had, and now everybody's going, well, not everybody, but certainly a great deal of people are saying, yeah, we need to be syringe-free for the rest of our lives. We need to tell our children, we need to make sure and tell our children's children, and so on and so on and so on. That's a generational shift. That's why you have all of these individuals across American schools, again, opting their children out of taking the necessary shots, so to speak. They're filling out all the exemptions. And in the states, again, with these so-called exemption bans, they're pulling their children out of school permanently. And then, of course, they're still attempting to send them to public school in many cases, but they're fighting with the actual school district itself and threatening to sue them if they don't accept the religious exemption. This is a good thing. This is a snowball that's been kicked down the hill. It's just going to get bigger and bigger. And you're never going to be able to catch it, slow it down, or even break it up. It's too good. But this is what Operation Warp Speed was about. It wasn't speeding up. It wasn't about speeding up the killing of people. It was about exposing and speeding up the enemy's plans. so that they'd have to rush everything out faster than they wanted to, and then more people would immediately recognize the ridiculous nature of the entire thing. And it's worked. Doesn't mean that the bad guys still aren't going to do what they're doing. I mean, they're still going to manipulate the stock market. Moderna's stock, for example, regarding the so-called cancer vaccine for melanoma, I mean, Moderna's stock went up 160%. So yeah, they're going to pull a Vivek Ramaswamy and make money on something that doesn't work on the stock market, and then, of course, ditch it later on. But people have already made their money then, while everybody else is stuck either taking such a shot and believing the lie that goes along with it and then reaping what they sow, or people like us sit back and can see the entire scheme for exactly what it is. And as it turns out, I think that Donald Trump's new pick here for the FDA commissioner might be one of these people also. This is an interesting pick, and I think a very good one. Heidi Overton has been picked apparently to lead the FDA. Apparently, she's not a fan of the shots. She's not a fan of abortion either. Here's what this says. This is ARS Technica. President Trump is expected to nominate Heidi Overton, he already has, top conservative policy aide, as the next commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration, according to multiple media reports. Overton is currently the deputy director of the White House Domestic Policy Council and has played a key role in shaping a variety of health policies during Trump's second term. At times, she has notably angered members of the Make America Healthy Again movement, which was created by anti-vaccine health secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Anti-vaccine. Well, it's because he's intelligent and he knows what's going on. Overton has a medical degree from the University of New Mexico's School of Medicine and earned a doctorate degree in clinical investigations from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. While at Johns Hopkins, she worked with Marty Makary, the previous FDA commissioner who was ousted by Trump amid a cacophony of controversies. Makary and his political appointees at the FDA sparked anger and criticism during a string of dubious moves on drugs for rare diseases, frustrating patients and the pharmaceutical industry alike. He also earned the ire of the tobacco industry, public health advocates, anti-abortion groups, and a variety of federal officials. According to sources for the Wall Street Journal, Overton was a staunch defender of Makary during his time in the role. And prior to Overton's current White House role, she worked on health policy for America First Policy Institute, a conservative think tank previously helmed by Brooke Rollins, who now serves as Trump's agriculture secretary. Again, I think this is a pretty decent move. I don't think she's dirty. I don't think Marty Makary was dirty either. I think Marty Makary, he wanted particular medicines that were experimental to be used for people and basically for individuals to have the choice to use them if they wanted to, or to speed up those particular studies in order to maybe get them approved. I don't think Marty Makary was even, a fan of the shots by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't think this Overton gal is either. So we're going to see what happens. But ultimately, Robert Kennedy Jr. is the one who runs the show over there regarding all of this. And again, if he doesn't like something that's taking place, I think he'll tell Trump, and then Trump will make a particular move one way or another. But it'll be interesting. Again, if she has to be confirmed, which she does, she's going to have to answer a whole lot of questions about her stance on abortion, vaccine, this, that, and the other. That should be an interesting hearing, to say the least. I hope she takes a hard line. And again, all the Democrats will keep doing what they do. They scream, they shout. The asleep Republicans will do the same thing. They scream, they shout. And at the end of the day, hopefully the truth wins. But again, we'll see what happens. Okay, I'm going to shift gears here. You're going to have to forgive me because I'm going to have to pause this kind of in and out to gather more information because this just came out here. But as it turns out, the city of Oxford, Ohio, where I live, has just voted to get rid of flock cameras as of September. Now, there's flock cameras all over town. If anybody's aware that the company, of course, has these cameras pointing in a particular direction, they have them at major intersections, or they'll have them outside of particular buildings, or, again, major roadways leading in and out of town, depending on where you live. Here's the funny part. And it really is the funny part and the hypocritical part. Just because an all left-wing communist city council, except for one person who I'll get to later, they all voted to have these flock cameras removed and to end the contract with Flock. It is not for the reasons you think. Part of it is, but the funniest part is that they want them gone because they don't want illegal aliens to be rounded up. They want them gone because they don't want a person, they even say it, a black or brown person, to be caught on camera breaking the law and then be unjustly persecuted for one reason or another, so they say. I'm not kidding. This is actually what they say in their council meeting, which, by the way, it took them 2 days to put it up on YouTube, their council meeting. It was initially up, you couldn't really view it. You could hit play and then whatever else, and then anyway, it took 2 full days for it to finally pop up. Point is I'm watching it right now, and these are the reasons that they're mentioning. It's the same thing with the actual citizens of this town that came up to the lectern to share their opinions. They bring up everything from its mass surveillance, its data sharing like you wouldn't believe, blah, blah, blah. None of them mention the larger picture and what it really means and what it's really going to lead to down the line. 15-minute city stuff, all of that. Social credit score. That's the larger scheme here. Which, by the way, that X thread that I summarized that was very long in the last episode, I put a new Substack out about it, so you can read the entire thing if you're interested. It's over on the americanclassroom.substack.com. That gets into the details of the long-term plan of the Flock program and the surveillance camera program, which, of course, nobody at this meeting even brings up. But they actually, again, they want the Flock cameras gone, but not for the reasons that most sane people want them gone. This is why, again, these people are hopelessly lost. Not to mention, and this is also the very rich part, is they'll mention that it's an infringement on people's civil rights and constitutional liberties. You have got to be shitting me. I agree with the statement, but the hypocrisy lies in the fact that they didn't give a rat's ass about any of that during the COVID lie. In 2020, 2021, and it wasn't until myself and a rough crew of misfits all decided to send city council all of these legal warnings having to do with them losing their insurance bonds if they didn't get rid of their mask and their distance policies around town. Again, this is the same city, and they finally buckled. And then they took to Facebook and they were like, citizens are going to sue us. No, we weren't going to sue you. We were legally warning you that we were going to go after your insurance because you had hurt and killed people based on your advice that people should take these shots. You ran an entire evil propaganda program throughout town using the newspaper, Facebook, and everything else. You took pictures of Miami University students in bars who weren't wearing masks when you thought that they should. You engaged in Bolshevistic practices to try to out these people and dox them, get them kicked out of school. You put an ordinance in place, very famously. It was national news. Put an ordinance in place that people could not congregate on their own property. And then you would cite Miami students for congregating on their own property, even if one or more were sick. And then Miami University would discipline them after the fact. And then you all got sued and you wondered why. I'm not going to listen to any speech from any city council member about any issue pertaining to civil rights and the infringement of civil rights in particular, when they themselves have done that very thing time and time again. Again, their hypocrisy is limitless, these people. I don't want those flock cameras to be used by an adjacent county police officer like in Hamilton County, Cincinnati, Ohio, because I don't trust all of those police officers. Some of those police officers hate brown people, and they'll just use it to target brown people. They believe this. They actually think that that's what flock cameras are being used for. No. Flock cameras are being used, again, by and large, for the right reasons. But I don't like them because of course, the much larger scheme behind it. They've already been weaponized in our own town, and city council here in the town where I live doesn't even recognize that. I don't think that Chief Jones and his giant coat, because he weighs 1,000 pounds, I don't think that he would ever misuse the flock system. He already has. He already has. I have proof. He's already misused it. They've already weaponized it against citizens to target them and go after them and pile charges on top of them that they wouldn't be able to do if they didn't have the flock camera, even when a real law hasn't even been broken. They just use it to string a story together that justifies their approach to, again, destroy human beings. This happens. This is a thing. I mean, I saw a story the other day. A female cop was misusing the flock cameras to stalk her ex-boyfriend. Not here in town. It was somewhere else throughout the nation. It was somewhere. I don't know if it was even in Ohio. My point is, again, is that these left-wing communists, both the citizens and city council themselves, they want the flock cameras gone, but not for the real reasons, not for the most just reasons. They want them gone because they want to protect illegal aliens. They want them gone because they think that black and brown people are consistently being persecuted for no reasons whatsoever. It's absolutely nuts. It's nuts. Very famously, I should say this too, I brought this story up when it happened. I think it was a black basketball player who was underage, was pissed drunk in a bar, broke into the bar after he had been kicked out. It was like 1 or 2 in the morning. He busted back in, started grabbing drinks that weren't his, causing a ruckus in another area of this particular bar, was asked to leave, became physically confrontational with the person who was asking him to leave. The police were called, and they gave him the George Floyd treatment. They took him to the ground, they kneeled on his back, they cuffed him, the whole thing, and then that was it. And then, of course, it didn't turn into all of the things that the black kid did wrong. It turned into all of the things that the cops did wrong, even though they didn't do anything wrong. But it happened to be caught on a particular camera. And it wasn't necessarily a flock camera, it was just a security camera that was outside of the particular establishment. That's why these people, again, these hippies, want these flock cameras gone. I just find the whole thing to be comical. People like us, we want them gone for the right reasons. People like them, they want them gone for the wrong reasons. Again, Bill Snavely, who sits on the city council, he's a former mayor, complete piece of shit. And he was on Don Lemon's show very famously back during 2021, during, again, the entire COVID lie and Miami University and, their gathering ordinance and all that other stuff. But he was the one who was like, I don't trust everybody in Butler County. I don't trust everybody in Hamilton County. And I don't trust all the cops in Hamilton County to do the right thing. If Hamilton County cops and Cincinnati cops have access to our flock cameras, what makes us think that they're going to do the right things with them? Well, first of all, if it means chasing down an illegal alien and booking them and cooking them and then tagging them and bagging them and getting them the fuck out of our country, that's a good thing. That's exactly why they should be used. That's the point. But Bill Snavely doesn't want that. Why? Because Oxford's a sanctuary city. These people are so, I'm telling you what, they are the dumbest MRFers on the face of the planet. But I just find the entire thing to be beyond comical. They're so dumb that they're openly admitting that they're harboring illegal aliens and criminals, and that's exactly why they want the flock cameras gone, so that the flock cameras can't see them harboring these people. But again, they want to whine about civil liberties. They crushed local businesses back during 2020 and 2021. You're not allowed to gather inside of a restaurant and eat food without a mask on. But you are allowed to gather inside of an inflatable igloo across the street from a restaurant, and you can sit inside of the inflatable igloo with anybody and as many people as you want. So we're going to put the igloos out, and you can sit in there, but you can't sit in a restaurant. These people are retarded. Capital R. Exclamation point retarded. I just got done listening to Jason Bracken, who's this other queer who sits on the city council. And here's exactly how he phrased it. He said, "I'm concerned that the flock cameras would be misused, thereby used to target individuals seeking gender-affirming care." He said that. And then he said that it would be misused when it came to trying to help ICE. And then he goes on a run and he openly says, "But I understand how they can be used to catch bad people doing bad things, and that's necessary. But cutting a kid's cock off and allowing illegal aliens to run rampant is fine." I mean, again, I don't have the words for these people. I just don't. I don't have the words for them. They've lost their minds. They are complicit in breaking the law. They're openly telling everybody where their interests lie. I mean, I don't want to get caught having sex with a kid, but at the same time, I want to make sure that, a real felon gets their due and gets caught. That's basically what they're saying. They're saying they want to hide all of their illegality and their perverse behavior, which is why they want the flock cameras gone, but they also can see how they're necessary because innocent people are victims of real crimes and blah, blah, blah. And I just got done watching the vote, and it was Jason Bracken who voted no. He was the one who voted to keep them in place. Again, he's completely certifiable. He always comes out, "I'm a scientist. I just think like a scientist." And then he tells everybody how bad flock cameras are, rather. And then all of a sudden, because again, he wants to hide whatever, parents who want to cut their kids up into pieces, and he wants to, let pedophiles get away with God knows what. But he also doesn't like mass surveillance. So then he votes, "Yeah, let's keep them." It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. And again, one of the other council members, what's her name? Last name is French, I think. Anyway, she decides to tell this personal story about, I don't know, some crime that was committed against her, or something along those lines. And then she says, "So flock cameras are actually being actively used in a case involving me and involving family members, and I can't see myself wanting to get rid of them." And then she votes to get rid of them. It's like, did you not hear yourself 5 minutes ago and what you were actually defending? It's amazing. It's just amazing. These people are so dumb. I'm telling you, they have got to have sub 80 IQs. I mean, they have to be clinical morons. There's just no other way around it. They want flock cameras gone for all the wrong reasons. And then they want to keep them for all the wrong reasons. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right, I'll probably revisit that story in the future. But either way, right now I'm just going to move on to education. I've got 3 quick stories and 2 pieces of audio to play. First of all, this was from MJ Truth the other day. It was titled "Mark Zuckerberg Meta AI Data Center." It says teachers in Richland Parish, Louisiana, received end-of-the-year bonuses of up to $50,935 this year, a massive windfall fueled by a surge in local tax revenue from Meta's new Mark Zuckerberg's $27 billion AI data center construction project. For many educators, that 13th check, quote-unquote, actually exceeded their entire annual base salary, which typically ranges between $29,504 and $52,335. Ladies and gentlemen, when money talks, teachers always stick their hands out. Their home could be destroyed, the property around them could be destroyed, their taxes will go through the roof, the whole thing. You could poison the well, but if you gave them a bigger check, they'll always take it. Listen to this piece of audio in 3, 2, 1.
Many of Richland Parish school teachers are seeing a historic payout thanks to a massive data center project happening in Richland Parish. According to our partners at NOLA.com, teachers received end of year 13th checks ranging from about $17,000 to more than $50,000, driven by a short-term surge in tax revenues from Meta's $27 billion Hyperion data center. That means some educators are getting bonuses equal to or even greater than their full year's salary, which in the district averages just over $40,000. Officials say more than 100 certified employees received the full payment, while others got partial checks based on years of experience. The school system says the windfall comes as the mega project, expected to run through 2030, continues to generate millions in sales tax revenue for the parish.
I bet the money's already gone. I bet it's gone. I bet they went on some vacation. They bought some hoopty, bought some guns. That 13th check is gone. It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm telling you what, if a data center company, and Meta AI specifically, is doing that and paying out paying teachers massive amounts of money to basically slide right into their backyard, they're not going to be the only ones. No chance. This is really dirty. Again, I'm not going to claim to know all the ins and outs and the long-term plans of the data centers outside of course, mass surveillance and 1,000 other things that probably can't be great. But wow, when they show up with checks, that's that's not good. That doesn't look good. Doesn't smell good either. Now, speaking of not looking good and smelling good, there's this. And again, you talk about school districts stepping in it. And this school district has been set up for a long time. I bring them up with regularity. I'm going to keep bringing them up, and you're going to recognize this person's voice, because I've played his audio on the show many times before in the past. Does the name Doug Krinsky ring a bell? Doug Krinsky is the guy who showed up at the Westerville City Schools in Westerville, Ohio, central Ohio. And he was going after them regarding the levy. He was dropping all of the levy knowledge on them and how their levy needs to fail and they're the worst money managers in the history of the planet and 1,000 other things. And he always brings the receipts, and he's 100% right every single time. So in the last board meeting, approximately 10 days ago, he showed up and he, again, gave another speech. Only this time he was going after their policy, where they openly state as a school board that if you have comments to mention during the public comments section, that you're not allowed to address the board members by name or specifically, that you have to address the board as a whole, but that you can't name names, even of school employees. You're not even allowed to come up to the lectern and say, Principal so-and-so of this high school did this to my kid. You're not even allowed to say that. So their policy says, if that policy even exists. But before the public comments section always occurs, their president, a Christy Meyer, who's one of the weakest feckless humans on that board, and they're all weak and feckless, because they're, again, unfortunately, they're all left-wing women, including the famous Somali Anissa Liban. She openly reads their so-called policy again, and then Doug Krinsky, well, you'll hear what he says. He baits her. He full-blown baits the entire board, and they took the bait. And he's right. He should take them to court, and he'll win, because their so-called policy of limiting free speech during the public comments section is unconstitutional. Give Doug a listen from, I think this is, August 10th, if I'm not mistaken, in 3, 2, 1.
So next up, we have 6.01, comments. And Board of Education welcomes public comment on educational issues of interest to our school community. board does not discriminate based on the identity or viewpoint of the speaker during our public participation. However, the board president may limit comments that are obscene, abusive, or harassing. In an attempt to protect the privacy interests of our students, the board asks that speakers not identify students by name during their comments. Persons having public complaints about district personnel, programming, or operations will be referred to the process set forth in Board Policy 9130. Finally, the board reminds speakers that their statements should be directed to the board as a whole and not to individual board members. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. A timer will be shown on the screens, and Ms. Dennis will call time when 3 minutes has elapsed. Our first speaker this evening is Mr. Doug Krinsky.
Thank you. President Meyer, we were exchanging emails with the superintendent a couple of months ago about the new newspaper that you guys have started in the district. So is it okay if I say President Meyer, I'm allowed to do that? That's not in violation of any policy that you have?
Please proceed, Mr.
No, I need to understand if it's in violation of a policy you have or not.
You're addressing, okay, thank you. Please address the board as a whole.
Okay, so I'm going to say it again. President Meyer, we were exchanging emails a couple months ago about the newspaper. Is that acceptable or not?
I'm saying, as I read, please address the board as a whole. So please
Well, I'm not going to do that.
address the board as a whole.
No, I'm not. So
Okay, well then,
you tell me if this is acceptable or not.
I just told you, just answered Mr. Krinsky. So either you can address the board as a whole or you can.
Okay, so you're not going to accept my public comments because I used your name. Is that correct? I need to understand what the policy is so I know what to say.
I just told you what it is. Please sit down.
So I'm going to sit down because I used your name. Is that correct? Yes? That's correct? Either you have a policy and I'm following it or I'm not. So I need to understand what the policy is. So it's up to you. Is it a yes? I'm asked to sit down. I can't make public comments because I used your name. Is that correct?
Mr. Krinsky, this is not a back and forth.
Okay, so I need an answer. Yes, I have to sit down because I used your name. Is that correct? Is that correct? So you have no policy that controls what I say in terms of using board member names, correct? Okay. We can go on for 3 minutes. I don't care, but I'm trying to understand what your policy is because I may sue the district because I think it's in violation of our First Amendment rights of free speech under the Constitution. So either you're going to clarify the policy here or potentially in court, which is going to cost you money, and eventually you're going to pay for my legal expenses if I win. So we can either clear the air right now to understand the policy, or we can probably end up in court to settle it there. It's cheaper if we do it here to try and figure it out, but it's up to you. It's your policy. So you're just going to let it go and you're not going to respond to me. Okay. So I guess we'll just let it go and we'll see what happens.
Because they don't have a policy. That's why. Her warning at the beginning of the meeting, and at the very beginning of the public comment section, is her preference that the board president reserves the rights to terminate your comments if they're obscene or you're naming us by name or we don't want you to name us by name and blah, 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 let alone any other employee. He just called them out that they don't have an actual policy, meaning anybody can come up to the lectern and say whatever the F they want, whenever they want to say it, about whomever they want, anytime. And there's nothing that they can do about it. They can get up there at the lectern and curse for 3 straight minutes, all they want. There's nothing that they can do about it. He just called them out. Name the policy. They have no policy. It's their opinion, which means he should go back the next time, next month, And he should either, again, I mean, if he wants to sue him, I guess he can, but it'll come out in court that they don't have a policy, that it's just their preference. But then they'll have to specifically state that on the record during their next board meeting, once the court rules the way that they rule, because he's looked up the policy, of course, and has not found a policy. This is, again, the only reason I'm mentioning this is the slippery behavior of people who hide things. This is the slippery behavior of criminals. They don't want members of the public coming up to them and telling them that a law is being broken and that they're the ones breaking the law, or that a law is being broken and someone else is breaking the law who happens to work for that organization, i.e. the school district. They don't want that, which means, what does that mean? They don't want the public to know what really goes on. In the future, when everybody understands that a school district is a criminal organization, which they should know by now, they've proven it, have they not? That every single time you go up to the microphone, it is your moral duty as an American to call them out by name, call out exactly what they've done, who they are, where they live, where they work, what building they're in, XYZ. You get to do that. You're allowed to do that. That's public information. All you're doing is sharing public information. But he baited him. Give me the policy. So are you saying you don't have a policy? And they don't. They've never voted on a policy to limit someone's free speech. They just had their lawyer write it in such a way that it sounds intimidating to people. But it only works on people who are weak. It doesn't work on people who can read between the lines. This Doug Krinsky guy can read between the lines. He knows exactly what's going on. I love it. Keep up the good work. Here's another one. Another Ohio school district I keep tabs on, which you're well versed in. This is the school district where one of the board members bullied one of the middle school students to death and caused him to kill himself. As it turns out, and you may recall this, although it's a bit of a stretch because I brought this up a while back, but in their 2020, let me see here. Here we go. Got it. In their 2024-2025 school year, the Upper Arlington school system in Upper Arlington, Ohio, claimed that at the elementary level, they had 0 reported incidents of bullying. And they apparently decide to share this information with everybody every 6 months. So in the 2024 to 2025 school year, they claim that they have 0 incidences of real reported bullying at the elementary level, and they only had 15 at the secondary level, which encompasses the middle school and the high school. Who believes that? No one with a brain in their skull. It's impossible. Because what happens is they'll get 60 some odd reports of bullying, and I don't even believe that number. And then they basically do whatever they have to do to weed them out and then delete as many as humanly possible, and then they arrive at a very small number. Just a fraction of what the original number was. Now, in the 2025-26 school year, that just, of course, wrapped up in the semesters, in the last semester from January 1st to June 30th, they claimed that at the elementary level, they had 18 reports of bullying and only 7 of them were substantiated. And then at the secondary level, grades 6 through 12, they had 53 reports of bullying, but only 19 were substantiated. It's a complete lie. It's a complete and utter lie. No one believes this. Again, it's paper fraud. They're doing this consistently. They send these numbers to the state. And then this, of course, has something to do with them receiving federal and state funding. You don't go from 0 reported incidents of bullying at the elementary level to 13 within a semester. It just doesn't happen. But the school district in the town where I live, they fudge the numbers all the time too. They do the exact same thing. Well, we had 70 incidents of bullying, and it turns out that none of them met the definition of bullying. Who doesn't know what the definition of bullying is? It doesn't matter how many ways you rework the definition. Everybody knows what it is. It's an unprovoked attack on another person. That's what bullying is. period. It doesn't have to be repeated. That's harassment if it's repeated, and that's a crime, which means people should be filling out police reports. Bullying is again, it can be once, it can be multiple times, but it's directed at the same person or even a group of people by a specific individual or a group of people. It's not complicated, but the lying continues. And again, it's fraud. They're fudging the numbers, and that has a direct link to money. They'd like you to believe that it doesn't. They would tell people it doesn't. Well, we just do this for our own safekeeping, and we do it to track the mental and emotional health of students. I find it funny that their bullying numbers are so low, in fact, almost non-existent, and yet they claim that their mental and emotional health facilities or programs or whatever need more money, need more funding. I didn't think anybody was getting bullied. My question is was the middle school kid, Carter Adele, when he was bullied to death and he took his own life, shot himself in the head after being threatened to be expelled because the board member didn't like comments that he made at her house about her house smelling like Indian food or something along those lines. Was she a part of those bullying statistics? Was she mentioned as a board member within the statistics of people who do the bullying? I bet not. Because the number would be way higher if it was board members and actual school employees who actually do the bullying within school environments. It would be, again, if they were keeping both statistics accurate, bullying among staff towards students and students towards students would be equal. Same thing with students towards staff members. It would all be equal and remarkably high. But they don't want anybody to believe that any of those different angles actually occur. It's a criminal organization. Period. Here's more proof of it. Last story right here. This was from Zero Hedge. And remember, in the last episode, I was talking about how the Department of War is coming after 30 universities and they want them to audit their books. As soon as that came out, here's the story that came out of Harvard. Again, Zero Hedge. Harvard to pay $53 million to families of donors whose body parts were sold off. Harvard University has agreed to pay $53 million to resolve lawsuits brought by the families of those whose loved ones' body parts were donated to its medical school only to be sold on the black market by its morgue manager. Again, stolen brains, skin, bones, you name it. Other human remains. This has been in court for quite some time, but this is incredible. Their former morgue manager, of course, has been jailed and was sentenced. He was indicted, rather. Cedric Lodge was indicted in 2023 and sentenced to jail. They pled guilty in December of 2025, sentenced to 8 years in prison. Also admitted to stealing body parts from cadavers donated to Harvard Medical School's anatomical gift program and selling them to buyers across the country. Classic. Just classic. What goes on these campuses is darker and more disgusting than what people can possibly imagine. No wonder they don't want to be audited, let alone by the federal government. No wonder they don't want to turn over their books and their finances and where all the money's been donated to and all the donors that are receiving kickbacks and 1,000 other things. No wonder they don't want to, specifically Harvard. Hell, they had a person working there selling body parts. It's pretty obvious. Pretty obvious it's a dirty place. Ladies and gentlemen, again, there's so much more going on, but I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening as always. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you on Monday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.